Hey, good morning everyone. Welcome to the garden. It's a beautiful day out here in the garden here in Northern California. It's a spring day. We just had a little bit of a light rain yesterday. And so today's video, I'm gonna tell you one thing you must absolutely positively do in your garden after a spring rain. Out there, one thing that you absolutely need to do and consider, and especially as you can see in my garden, it's probably a bigger problem than in your garden, hopefully. I sincerely hope that you don't have as many weeds growing in your garden, as your vegetable garden as I do right now. You can see I have some plants around me, much are weeds, but some of them are actually good. And so I got some coriander here in an earlier video. We're gonna have some cilantro and some beet seeds that were coming along, but most of this, 99% of all this behind me, needs to be dealt with and cleaned up. And then I'll show you on our pathways, we've got some weeds coming up. And so the whole point of this is that after a spring rain, it was cool and moist yesterday. Now there's some moisture that on the plants and in the soil, just a little bit more than there was, and now it's going to get warmed up again. And so guess what? What do you think that's going to do to the garden and the plants and your weeds? It's going to make it all grow like crazy. Whether it's a plant you like or a plant you dislike, more than likely, if they're out there right now, sprouted up and growing, the sunshine, the heat, it's going to make them take off. So one thing I highly recommend is after a spring rain is get out in your garden, check your garden, check for even the smallest weeds that maybe weren't there last week, because some folks take a great care of their gardens, and the weeds are not quite a problem because they take care of it as it comes. But even then, it's because they're keeping up, either doing a lot of things, many things to make that happen. And so one of the things you want to do is get to weeds before they get big, before they go to seed, before they can reproduce and spread. And so that's one thing we're going to do today. I'm going to show you some footage, maybe some before and after of some of the beds. And another thing that we need to do this week here in our garden, which is massive, is that we have a huge task ahead of us, is that this bed I'm sitting in here and the one behind me there, these are all vegetable beds. And so we've just now got some students coming back to school, but on the one hand, and then on the other hand, we're going to be on summer break here soon, but then have some students back for summer. Either way, we're going to get all this cleared out. We're going to get a summer crop planted in here, but it's going to be a lot of work. We have a huge amount of compost that needs to be added. And so that we have things are piling up. We got a lot done these last couple of weeks, but we know we've only scratched the surface. We got so much more to do. Let's go take a look at these weeds and see if we can't get some of this work figured out. All right, so before I get started on this, I kind of want to show you what I'm up against. So you can see a lot of different seasonal weeds, thistle, and different types of broadleaf weeds popping up. And so it's just not great. So I'm going to come in here, we're going to try to weed whack a lot of this. We'll cultivate the soil, we'll add some compost. And so you can see in our garden beds here, they're just ready. If we want to plant them for the summer, now's the time. And so some other stuff that I would really consider, getting right after a little rain out in your garden, because you don't want these weeds to get big, because once they get larger, like I said earlier, they'll go to seed or they'll reproduce. So you can see right here, here's some Bermuda grass right there. And so you can see it just starting out, and you can see his friend there kind of spreading its little rhizomes out, and they'll spread across the soil surface and underneath it with their rhizomes, which looks like a root, but it's actually an underground stem that makes it really, here I'll show you, makes it really difficult to get rid of these little boogers, because any little piece that gets left behind can sprout, and you can see it. These are the ones that climb up other plants, climb across your soil. We get them over here. You can see them all kind of poking out through these rocks, and so, but then also just the walkway. So like I said, there's a little bit of moisture in the soil. We got some heat coming, and so they're all going to get big. But if I can get in here and weed whack them back a little bit, then we can. It makes it a lot easier to deal with, as opposed to waiting and giving these all a week or two to get larger. I've been kind of coming in here periodically and keeping stuff trimmed up, but right now there's going to be a mixture of moisture and a mixture of heat. And for these plants, these weeds, even the ones that we like and the ones that we don't like, they're just going to take off. Over here I have a slight, I'll have to do a video later this week, there's a slight leak in the irrigation system right here. There is just a cut in one of the drip tubes, and it's like pouring out water. You see the tree is loving it though. It's loving that excess water, but the weeds around it are not. So we're gonna have to fix that, trim these weeds back, and go from there. But you can see right through here, You really don't. We want to make sure this walkway and the area around these trees and in between the trees is manageable. This is our orchard out here, so a lot of different fruit trees. This is a 20th century pear right there, and actually I think I've grafted on another type of pear to that tree as well. But you can see we really want to get in here and battle out all these weeds that are starting to kind of, you can see these little foxtails and stuff, and there's so many different varieties out here. Some of which are actually kind of pretty. You can see a little one right here. This is a weed that grows out here, and it's not great because it spreads so quickly, but it's seasonal and we usually can keep it under control. So out of all the weeds out here, it's actually the one I kind of like looking at the most. But you can see that along our edge here, we really need to do some work, especially when you have plants that are growing up against the trunk of your tree. There's also a little irrigation cut, so it's not broken fully, but it's just spraying top spray out, and so you can see the weeds are loving it. Tree's doing okay because it was hurt, but we got to get that all cleared up, and then make sure the irrigation is pinned back. And so those are the things that I would highly recommend. That's one thing these are the things you really got to do after a nice spring rain, is get out in your garden, check for any damage. If it was a strong rain, we actually had a massive tree snap in half, and the property right behind my home. So we kind of share, we both border a creek, and the tree limb just boom, snapped, exploded. But you could tell it was a big old oak tree and it hadn't been pruned ever. And yeah, but anyhow, so you always check for damage, make sure your garden's safe. But typically after a nice little spring rain, everything wants to grow good, which can be a great thing for your veggies. You got your summer crop in. Usually if it was a light rain and there's not too much damage, but ultimately for us, if you have a larger garden or even in your small garden, you really want to get out there and find those weeds that are sprouting, that are starting to spread. And whether it's by a weed trimmer, by hand, whatever, tool you like to utilize, get after it, get them out of there. We don't like spraying, chemical or Roundup out in our garden, obviously. So for us, it's a lot of hand removal, manual removal. I'll show you in a video later this week, one of my favorite tools for getting weeds to be out of your garden. It's a fantastic tool, and it's an amazing tool that I think every gardener, home gardener should absolutely have. It is just on another level as far as its ability to be used easily and to remove weeds. Well, I'll keep it a mystery until then. Hey, well that wasn't so bad. I think I got a good start here, but you know what? I'd be lying if I said the job was done, because I know I got a lot more work to do. Let the lesson be, if you got weeds, you got to deal with them. You're never going to get rid of them using just one method. You got to use a whole ton of range of methods and strategies. Getting after the weeds as soon as you can, especially after a rain and in between some warmth, is a very useful technique. I highly recommend it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please like and share and subscribe. It would really help me out. And if you could do this with your favorite YouTube creator, I'm sure they would appreciate it too, as much as I would. Until then, happy gardening and best wishes. Take care now. Bye-bye then. Back to work.